So with that, we do have representatives of Central Hudson here with us. You're welcome to come up to the table. You're welcome to come up to the podium and present to us.
What do you prefer, Supervisor?
Whatever you're comfortable with. If you'd like to be at the podium, that would probably also look a little better on camera for you.
Okay. So my name is Jerry Nappi. I'm the Public Affairs Director for Central Hudson. Thank you for having us, Supervisor, members of the town board. I have some colleagues along with me. I have Carrie Mihalakis. Carrie is our District Director, and she's the primary interface between the company and local towns in Southern Dutchess and Putnam County. Joe Jenkins is our Media Relations Director, and Anthony Campigiorni is our Senior Vice President of Public Affairs. We were invited to come and speak. We're happy to do that, answer any questions that you all have. One of the topics that we came prepared to speak about was, as you mentioned, kind of policy, costs, some of the reasons and the drivers behind the cost, the rising cost that we've seen. Obviously, costs have been rising across all industries. In the energy sector, we could speak about some of the drivers behind both the supply and the delivery portions of customers' bills. And then, to the extent we can, we'll talk about the 9D project. I didn't personally come prepared to speak about that. We can answer some questions, and we'll take the rest back that we can't answer, and we'll follow up with your constituents directly to get them answers. So I appreciate the feedback that we got tonight about 9D. Before I hand it over to Joe, I just want to, and Joe's going to walk through some of those policy and cost drivers, but I just wanted to just kind of level set on Central Hudson. Everyone knows Central Hudson is your natural gas and electric provider in Southern Dutchess and all the way up to Northern Dutchess on the riverside. But since Central Hudson has been around for 125 years, next year is our 125th anniversary. It's a great milestone for the company. The company has about 1,300 employees. Almost all of our employees live in the same area that we serve. So we're a large company, but we have a small hometown feel because our employees live in the local area. So when they're out doing work, they're not just serving customers, they're serving their neighbors and their friends and family. And that gives the company a great feel, and we take great pride in that. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to turn it over to Joe to talk about some of those cost drivers, and then we can get into some of the other questions about the 9D project and answer any questions that you all have.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So while Joe's getting in position, one of the reasons why we invited Central Hudson to be here is because many of us are seeing increases in our bills that are creating a lot of anxiety with respect to folks that perhaps were on budget billing this year, now seeing increases for next year. The rate increases that have been brought forth to the Public Service Commission, not once but twice now. And my concern has been those that are on, especially those that are on fixed incomes that are nervous about what's happening. And Joe has done a great job articulating what exactly is occurring. He's also very skilled at explaining the difference between energy usage on your bill and the delivery charge aspect of your bill. And I felt that this would be valuable for folks to hear how these numbers are formulated and perhaps give us some answers to some questions that we've heard from residents that may not know where to start if they have some challenges with billing. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Bill. And thank you again for having us tonight. We appreciate the opportunity. I do have some high-level answers for the 9D questions, and we'll get to those momentarily. But to follow up on what Bill discussed, and I want to take a quick step back and walk through the two key components of your utility bill before we get started, if you grant me a moment's leeway. Two key components. You have your supply portion, you have your delivery portion. Supply is the energy that you use. Since 2000, New York State's utilities have not been permitted to own generation in New York State. We are a delivery company, which means third parties produce your electricity and procure your natural gas for you. We purchase them on your behalf. We do not mark up those prices. We do not profit from them. This is a portion of your bill that is purely passed through from Central Hudson to the third parties. That does fluctuate from month to month based on market activity. There are several international, national, regional, and local drivers that can cause fluctuation to your supply prices from month to month. It does have an impact on your monthly bill. I think one of the things that Bill had mentioned and that we need to talk about too is more on the delivery side of the bill. That is the portion of the bill that those rates are determined through a rate hearing process from the Public Service Commission up in New York State. It is between the PSC, Central Hudson, and involved parties who are allowed to sign on and what are known as interveners to our case. And it is open to anyone to sign on as an interested party. We have gone in for rate cases because we simply need to invest more in our system. You have seen your delivery rates go up because those investments are required. One of the key reasons that we have to do this, number one, is system investments, simply keeping the system performing at the level it is currently operating at. What we have seen, because we are not immune to inflationary pressures just like any other home or business, is that the very basic needs that we need to in order to maintain the system, the costs for those items have increased, in some cases exponentially. Things as simple as poles, wires, transformers. In many cases, these items have more than doubled in cost over the past few years. This has obviously caused an impact on our delivery rates as we've gone in and made these requests to the PSC. From a policy standpoint, we also have to take a look at system upgrades we now have to make because of state laws. In 2019, the state passed the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. It is designed to transition New York's economy to a cleaner, greener space, largely impacted by how we generate our energy and how we deliver it to you. The energy system was designed a century ago to have energy generated from centralized units and deliver it to the people who use it. We're now being asked to redesign the system and completely rebuild it to accommodate generation from solar and wind. And I want to be abundantly clear on this. We completely support measures to drastically reduce our carbon emissions. We understand the importance of it. But the way this law was designed, we now have to ramp up more system investments to upgrade our system faster. A grid that took us over a century to build, we now have to reimagine and rebuild in less than a decade. It has accelerated the rate in which we have to build new items onto our system. We have to introduce new technologies to it. And we have to do it at a time where, as I mentioned before, our construction costs are higher than they've ever been. We're also asked to do this in a time frame that's never been achieved before. All of these have had significant impacts on the delivery rates and how we've requested them. One of the key things that we should really address too is what we're doing about it. What's Central Hudson doing about it to hold the line for you? Number one, our new CEO has got a laser focus on business efficiencies. She is looking at every dollar we spend that we collect from our customers and making sure that we're maximizing the benefit from it. You can see this example in our most recent rate request that we've gone in. If you take a look at the requests that have been made, the most recent requests made by every utility in New York State most recently, the average increase on a total bill for electric is 12.6% and 13% for natural gas. Central Hudson's proposed rate increase that we just asked for in our most recent case that we're working on right now is 4.5% for electric and 5.8% for natural gas. We've done this through a number of different measures, again, kind of reevaluating how efficiently we can run our business. One key item is we're not adding any headcount in this most recent rate case. The only area where we're looking to add headcount is where we deem it absolutely necessary, and that is in the area of cybersecurity, because our customer data and the safety of the grid are paramount. We also believe that one of the most important ways that we hold the line on energy costs across New York State is by having a collaborative relationship with our lawmakers. We believe it's important that we have open conversation, open dialogue, and that we're able to discuss our concerns with laws that are being put in place to make sure that sensible policy is being put in place, and making sure that if we do have to make all of these investments and a clean energy transition is not completely borne by the rate holder. As of right now, the only funding mechanism we have to transition to a clean energy system is on the utility bill.
Well, hold on right there. So that's the point. The legislation in 2019 that I sat right here and said was going to be detrimental on residents in this town is why we are paying such significantly increased bills. The delivery charge is directly correlated with the CLCPA legislation from 2019, Joe, and basically what that legislation says, New York State is required to reduce economy-wide greenhouse gas emissions 40% by 2030, which is totally unrealistic, and 85% by 2050, and they're going to get to that, or they're going to try to get to that by charging the residents, the customers, putting that expense on the customer's back. Is that fair to say? That's what's happening here. So where does it end? How do residents in the state of New York, how do they afford these types of increases to reach unrealistic goals that state legislators voted for and passed in 2019? What do we tell to our residents that already right now, before your second rate increase, and the rate increase isn't even the major issue here, the delivery charge, which is not unique to Central Hudson, Con Ed, O&R, these utilities all have a similar formula that has to fund these upgrades by these ridiculous timelines set forth in the 2019 CLCPA. So how do residents that are perhaps on fixed incomes that can not afford to pay their bill right now, what do we tell them, Joe? What's going to happen in the next year or the next 3 years?
Again, I think it's a primary focus of ours on our end. You know, it takes a village to lower our energy costs overall. We are focused on, number one, if we have to go in for rate increases, making them as low as humanly possible. I am a Central Hudson customer. My sister, my nieces, my elderly parents are Central Hudson customers. They have concerns about this, so it means a lot to me. We will continue to make sure that we are doing everything we can on our end to keep our business as efficient as possible, run it as leanly as possible. And it's important to note as well that we don't set our rates without conversing first with New York State and the Public Service Commission. We set forth proposals. That's where you see a lot of the media attention. And then we work with our regulators at the Public Service Commission and again with these interveners. And what we're hoping to do with this current rate case, again, when we talk about that 4.5% and 5.8%, it is our goal to reach a multi-year settlement that would spread that out over 3 years and further mitigate those costs. Again, when you had mentioned, Bill, that we had a rate increase and then we asked for another. That was not out of want, but out of need due to function and how the rate-making process went for Central Hudson. There are two paths you can go down with the rate-making process. You can go down a settlement path, which is what I just discussed for multiple years. You can go down a litigated path, which basically puts your rate case on trial. With our most recent request that was approved, it went down a litigated track, which means we had to have subject matter experts go in front of an administrative law judge and explain why we needed that increase. The administrative law judge then issued a recommendation that the Public Service Commission ultimately approves.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I've looked, many of us have looked at our bills. My usage has gone down. My bill's gone up $200 per month.
Yes.
From 2015 to 2024, I've been in my house, my 10th Christmas in my house, right? My budget billing went from $250 a month to now it's going up from $450 a month, right?
Yep.
So, you know, that's my choice to live in my house. I get it. But I think about those that are in a different situation, right? And 5 years ago, pre-COVID, right, could barely make ends meet. And now, perhaps on a fixed income, and I'm not putting this on Central Hudson. Let me make that clear. Central Hudson is a good partner, okay, with this town. Central Hudson has bent over backwards to help facilitate us during emergencies. I will tell you that, not only in this town, but in this county. Central Hudson's readiness is second to none, okay? My concern has to do with the deliverables that are associated under the CLCPA from the state legislature that Central Hudson now has to bear to a point. The capital expenses then end up becoming funded by the residents. You can decrease your usage of energy. You can buy all new appliances that are more energy efficient, and your bill still goes up. That is a fact. And that's because New York State has put this CLCPA unrealistic timeline in place. And I have a Tesla. I believe in being green, right? I'm recycling the whole nine, but we have to be realistic here, right? We have to make sure that as government, energy remains affordable, or else we cannot function. And I'm not concerned necessarily about the large businesses. I'm concerned about folks that live in single-family dwellings and apartments that have to think about turning their heat on or turning it off because they're not sure if they can put food on the table. That is the concern that I have. And I expressed this in 2019 with this legislation, specifically right here, that this is not a good thing. So my question to you, Joe, is there an option for this legislation to be amended where the timeline can be adjusted so that it takes this weight off of residents month to month and spreads it out over a longer period?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. There are two what we call circuit breakers within CLCPA. One is very clear, based on reliability. If the transition to wind and solar, because they are intermittent renewables, they are weather dependent. Solar does not work at night or when it's cloudy out, and wind generation does not occur when it's not windy. So if reliability at a state level is called into question, a circuit breaker is thrown to pause CLCPA. The other one, which is not so immediately clear, is what they say is affordability, which is, I think, exactly what we're talking about here. But I don't know that we have a clear-cut definition of what affordability looks like to throw that circuit breaker, and it clearly hasn't happened yet.
Who controls the circuit breakers?
I'm not abundantly clear on that. I would think it's the Public Service Commission.
Okay. I'll yield to my colleagues.
Thank you, Councilman.
You know, just as the one thing, as you were alluding to, Bill, is elections have consequences.
That's right.
This is done in Albany. It's always portrayed that Central Hudson's the bad guy, always. We know that, and like you said, they're a great partner. This comes from the legislature.
I agree with you 100%.
So, you know, you can reach out to your legislator. They control the Public Service Commission, we know that. So that's people's only option, to tell you the truth, because, I mean, we can go down the hole of saying, you know, you do it talking about wind. The carbon footprint will never be matched on creating the wind turbine than what they're trying to create. So, I mean, you can look study after study after study, and that's a fact. But they do generate electricity, and that's the only thing that they're selling. But if you're talking about carbon footprint, which seems, it'll never be reached, but they don't factor in the manufacturing of the unit. But it goes down to talk to your legislator. You know, and AJ is great, and our senator is great, but they're in a minority, so.
They understand.
They
They
do.
fight for us.
Yep.
People have to remember that elections do have consequences. Think about it when you go and vote, because this is one of the reasons why your bill is this high.
I want to shift for a minute, if it's okay, Supervisor.
I was
unless you
going
have
to say, if
something. Go
I
ahead.
just had one thing here.
Go ahead.
Joe, Jerry, your team, we really appreciate you folks coming here today and again listening to our residents. We've had a few instances in the town of Wappinger where we could have had a little more communication. Residents are, you know, obviously on edge, you know, considering a number of different disasters that have happened around the region. Obviously, the Route 9D project, my office, the town, we knew absolutely nothing about the project until the variable message boards went out on Route 90 and Middlebush Road. So obviously that creates kind of a disconnect when residents are calling our office, and then we're then following up with Central Hudson after the fact because we don't have the information, again, we didn't even know about the project. Earlier this year, over the summer, there were two controlled gas line release blow-offs, one of which you did notify us. We do appreciate it. That was following the incident in the town of East Fishkill, obviously emergency situation.
Yes.
We appreciate you letting us know. But before that, there was one in particular off of the Pie Lane Edge Hill area that sounded like a sonic boom going off. So between incidents such as that sound like there could be an actual emergency situation and planned situations such as the Route 9D project, how does Central Hudson plan to increase communication with the town of Wappinger moving forward? Because I know that you have a number of other projects coming down the pipeline.
Yes.
We just need to know about it.
Yeah, and again, as you said, we value the partnership with you, and that communication certainly needs to improve. To address the planned blow-off on Pie Lane, Again, blow-offs are part of the work order at times. To be perfectly frank, they did not anticipate that to be the audible disturbance that it was. We will improve our communication, and we'll work with you more closely when those things happen. We'll be in closer contact with Dutchess County 911 and other emergency services. Regarding the 9D project, that is part of one of our district improvement projects. This is a state order. In 2016, the Public Service Commission ordered all utilities in New York State to accelerate their replacement of their natural gas infrastructure. So every year, Central Hudson is required to replace a minimum of 15 miles of gas main. That is part of that project. When we do these projects, we often host open houses for customers to come and visit. We send letters to the local residents who will be impacted. This just happened at my house in the city of Poughkeepsie, and I understand the stress that it can cause when you have to go outside and ask a guy to drag a metal plate across your driveway just so you can go to work. I just lived it this summer. So I appreciate what you all are going through. That being said, it is work that needs to be done to maintain the safety and reliability of the natural gas system. When we conduct this work, we see significant drop-offs in reports of gas odors and gas leaks. It reduces emissions and overall improves the safety of the system. And we have a responsibility to maintain that system as long as it's in place. We do have a website. At centralhudson.com, under the projects page, you can click on gas projects, and there are weekly updates posted on there where we show the exact progress we're making on each project. Each customer who is impacted by this on the local level, if it's in front of your home or business, you receive that letter, and it has the cell phone for the Central Hudson foreman who is overseeing that project, and you can contact him or her at any time. But again, at the municipal level, we owe you better communication, and we will certainly work on that to make sure, and we can meet with you after or sometime later this week to make sure that we establish a regular cadence for that.
And I appreciate that, Joe, and I understand that when you move forward with these projects, this is a third-party contractor, correct?
In most cases, yes.
And sometimes there's room for error. Sometimes that notification might not hit someone's mailbox or their home. Sometimes, flaggers may be, not always reliable, when they're dealing with, controlling traffic and things like that. These were the frustrations that were felt by the residents and the tens of thousands of commuters that travel on Route 90 and the residents each and every day. As long as that is being taken into account, next time around, we can't have another disaster like that again.
Of course.
I hope that you do pass it along to the contractor who was your vendor on this, as it was a nightmare, and we do know that some of our residents did not receive notification about projects going on in their own backyard there.
Absolutely.
So as long as we can continue to have that commitment from Central Hudson and make sure that that communication is there, I think that's all that we can ask for on our end when it comes to this. I understand that this is a mandate on your end that you have to do. It's just, again, communication goes multiple ways in this scenario.
100%. Absolutely.
So I do want to give you some credit, though. I'm part of the Pie Lane incident that happened, Pie Lane Hilltop. And what I will tell you is even though the residents weren't notified, I can tell you that once the incident happened and you had probably 10 trucks out there, fire engines, everything, you were going door to door, making sure people were safe. So we do appreciate that, taking the time to go out there and make sure residents, were notified, and you did do a good job, taking care of the residents here, because a lot of people were scared. They didn't know what it was. It sounded like a jet plane going over their house, and they didn't know what it was, a big explosion. But you were out there, able to, make the residents feel a little safe, safer than they were. So again, do appreciate it. And I have a personal incident. You actually came to my house. I had a gas leak at my house. You were there in no time. You came there, you dug up the driveway, you paid for our hotel. It was nice. So meals and everything else. So I do appreciate it. You do have good response time. So thank you for what you do. I know that you get a lot of bad press sometimes, but you also, you do some good things too. So, and we do appreciate that. Thank you.
Joe, maybe I shouldn't have referred to the traffic issue as a disaster before. That was probably not the right term to use based on some of the incidents we've worked on together.
Yep.
But let me say this. Is the project done right now on 9D? I'm just wondering. Does anybody know that? Or Carrie? Still
It is
working?
not done yet.
Any ETA on do we know when that thing's going to be complete?
The last I heard, it was going to go through the end of the year and the price of the project.
Okay. All right, we'll get more information, we'll push it out. Obviously, they probably don't have a total control of the timeline right now, but the point is, the traffic analysis that was done before this work probably was not right. You're talking 19,000 cars per day. We basically, in order to make sure the volunteer fire department could respond, we had to hand out staff cars to volunteers in the daytime so that they could get to the firehouse, because they literally couldn't get to the firehouse. So I'm not putting it on you. You're not the foreman on that job, and I understand it was a third-party subcontractor, 2 of them, with the flaggers. So it is what it is. But 9D already is bottlenecked, and that certainly made it worse and still continues to if the project's not done. So we could talk more offline about maybe some strategies. I know that you were at the mercy of the state DOT with respect to permits and detours, and I already heard all this, that there was a plan and it wasn't approved. I get it. That said, we just need to be more cognizant of the amount of traffic that actually flows through there during peak times, because any little backup can not only be an inconvenience for residents, it could actually delay public safety response. So I'm not going to belabor that point, because I will say this. Central Hudson has stood next to me at real disasters, okay, in my capacity as Director of Emergency Management for Dutchess County. We have had recently some very serious situations in this town. Village of Wappingers Falls gas explosion, 16 people injured. Central Hudson, with respect to supporting the incident response, was there with their highest level of leadership on scene to remedy that situation as quickly as possible. Certainly, there are individuals that are still injured from that. Thankfully, nobody lost their life that day. But I will say that's not the first time I have worked with Central Hudson during a critical incident. And I just want to be on the record to tell you all that aside from the traffic inconveniences and aside from billing issues, which are important, Central Hudson has been beyond responsive to major emergencies. The town of East Fishkill gas incident, which was, I believe, a regulator failure or something like that off of Old Hopewell and 82, another example, working collectively with Central Hudson, all levels of leadership within Central Hudson to improve upon the situation to not affect the neighborhood that was adjacent to there. The community gas exercise that was recently held at James S. Evans Elementary School, which was a full functional exercise, which means that police, fire, EMS, Central Hudson responding to the school to work a practice drill on an actual event at a school, which was a very well organized exercise that involved all agencies and better prepared our community to respond. And then, of course, the training that they offer to our volunteer fire departments for gas leaks, which we go to quite regularly, whether it be learning about gas leaks and different types of gases and metering, and just up at Woodhill Greens the other night for a similar situation. So Central Hudson is responsive, and they also on the back end are training our responders. So I just want to get that out there. I didn't want to get too political here tonight with respect to what plays into the increase, but I think knowing where the delivery charge originates from and knowing that there are variables there that are legislative, I think that we're going to have to continue to have that communication with our state legislators and the Public Service Commission to extend those deadlines so that we can make this more affordable for folks that are on fixed incomes. And that brings me to my last point. Folks that may have billing questions for you, folks that would like to reach out to your office, perhaps they have a bill discrepancy or perhaps they missed a payment, something like that. Joe, how do we direct residents to contact you?
Yeah, the number one way you can reach out to us, we have significantly ramped up our contact center staff, so you can call us. Our hold times are down. You can reach us at 845-452-2700. That is the number one way to reach us. You can also chat with us online if you'd prefer to do it that way. We have a chat function on our website that you can use as well. Those are the two primary ways to get a hold of us. But again, if grant me one moment too, for folks who are concerned about their bills, there are assistance programs available for income-qualified customers. Right now, the federally funded HEAP program, the Home Energy Assistance Program, is available. You can apply through your Department of Social Services for that. That also automatically enrolls you in Central Hudson's Low-Income Bill Discount Program, which you can be enrolled in if you're on any form of government assistance, even if you don't qualify for HEAP. If you are not income qualified, we do also offer zero interest, no cost deferred payment agreements. So if you receive a larger bill that you feel that you can't pay off in one lump sum, we can break that up for you in bite-sized chunks to keep your account in good standing and help you the best way we can.
And
Thank you,
Joe,
Joe.
will we be shutting anyone's utilities off?
In the wintertime, we do not shut off residential customers.
Okay, that's important. And folks that are listening right now or watching us, there are folks out there that have challenges with respect to making their payments with any type of bills. I mean, everyone is having challenges right about now with the inflation we're facing and the grocery bills that we have. There are options out there, folks. So if you feel like there's no options, there are options. You can reach out to Central Hudson, or if you feel more comfortable, you can reach out to us, our office, the supervisor. You can also reach out to social services at the county level, the Dutchess County Department of Community and Family Services, which can help you find the options. No one should be out in the cold. No one should not have power. We will do everything we can as a town to make sure that no one is deprived of those basic services. And Joe, I appreciate you being here. And Carrie, shout out to Carrie, who's our district director. Carrie's generally my first phone call when something's going off the rails, right? So, Carrie, we need, what's happening down here in this area, and she is able to provide us with what are known as ETRs, estimated times of restoration, very quickly. So if your neighborhood goes without power and you don't know what's going on, and we see the messages on what's happening on Facebook or whatever, a lot of times we're already reaching out to Central Hudson, we're already talking to them, making sure they understand how important it is to get the power back on, especially during this time of year where temperatures are dropping. For folks that may have medical needs or be considered life safety situations, Joe, is there a process by which Central Hudson has an opt-in program?
Yeah, absolutely. For life support equipment, there is a special application that has to be filled out. You can find it at centralhudson.com. It's a couple clicks away, so I can't off of memory direct you to exactly that spot on our website, but there's a little magnifying glass in the corner that you can click on and type in life support equipment. You'll find it there, or you can call us and a customer service representative will help you out as well.
A lot of the senior people do call.
Absolutely.
People that are on oxygen or need special care.
Yeah, they can call us
You've
directly.
been very, very receptive. And I also want to say you're a pillar in this community. You have sponsored so many things for seniors and children. I mean, we are very lucky. Excuse me. Unfortunately, it flows downhill, and a lot of this mandates are coming from the state, and unfortunately, it is what it is. But I do want to commend you. There are times that I have called, my constituents have called Central Hudson, and you've helped. I've looked at the outage map, which is very helpful, and it also, it tells you when you can expect. And just call your ladies and your people on the phone system that you have are very receptive, very courteous, and they really do go out of the way. They honestly do, and it's a tough situation.
Thank you.
And I commend you, as difficult as it is. So thank you.
To the entire Central Hudson team, we do appreciate you folks being here. I do not want to belabor too many points. I think that we had a number of solid points addressed here tonight. If any residents would like to speak directly to Central Hudson, they can do so following this session, as public portion is now over. So I'm going to sign you folks up to speak to some of our residents out in the lobby.
Sure.
To ask some of their questions.
Happy to.
Okay.
Just last point, I want to say, the reason why I brought up the life, what is it called again, Joe? Life support, what is it called? All right, so whatever it's called. But those that are on, like my dad right now is on oxygen, right? So folks that have oxygen machines or folks that need to be connected to electricity or maybe have a battery backup or something, right? So they're put on a special list that Central Hudson prioritizes, right? And Central Hudson makes an effort to reach out to those folks during sustained power outages. My office also works with Central Hudson to make sure we make positive contact with individuals on these lists. So if you or your family or your neighbor has those needs, make sure they opt into that list so that we have them on the spreadsheet and we can reach out to them.
And you actually go to the homes. I mean, I had a resident, and I thought that was was fantastic. And there was a buddy system also in place.
Or we use
That
sheriffs,
they
too. Yeah.
contact their neighbor, or we contact you, and it works out phenomenally. It really does.
And all of this
So thank
information is
you.
available on your website, correct?
That's correct. Yes,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much. Thank you.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Mr. Supervisor, may I ask 2 questions of Central Hudson that I think will not only benefit me, but others?
Up to the board.
This-
Yeah.
Come on up, Mr. Evangelista.
Thank you. Again, Ron Evangelista, Route 90 in Houstonville, and these are, I guess, specifically about the 9D project. Who's responsible to send out the notices to the people, the residents that are directly impacted?
We have a Department of Real Property Services that sends it out to the name associated with the parcel.
So Central Hudson does that, not the third-party contractor. Okay, thank you. And the second question is, I've been at meetings where Central Hudson has come to the town and discussed replacing transmission poles. This seems like a larger project than transmission poles. I'm curious as to why Central Hudson did not come to the town of Wappinger, and discuss this Route 90 project. Obviously, the traffic, we've talked about that. This is a major thoroughfare, as anyone who drives this area knows. So I'm curious as to why you would not come to the town of Wappinger and discuss this project before the signs went up and before the project started.
It's certainly something we should have done, given the level of frustration that it's caused. I appreciate the input, and it's something that we will absolutely work on in due time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you all for
folks.
coming.
And again, Central Hudson will